Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Without Context podcast. I am, of course, Decavolty, joined by SharkyHat as usual. Today's guest is Marissa. I'm going to give the Sharky to introduce her because we're learning together, audience.
Yeah, this is my friend Marissa Bell. She is an actress. We've known each other for a while, and I just wanted to bring her on and have her talk to us, about the acting life. And it's not to disparage Marissa here, but it hasn't, I don't think, according to the IMDb, I don't know how recent it is for you, but it's mostly been background roles, it has seemed.
Yeah, so IMDb is sort of tricky. So you sort of have to do it yourself as a performer. And I'm not a very technical person, so I don't really know how to update it. So it's kind of old.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I knew you did back when when I found out you were an actress and everything was 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. And I actually saw you on screen in several scenes. And I was like, it was that Leonardo DiCaprio meme of pointing at the TV. I was like, that's my friend. I know her.
It's so funny. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I did that show for like 4 seasons. The latest sort of project that I'm really excited about, it's coming out in theaters everywhere on Thanksgiving Day, Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. I stood in for that, so I was a stand-in, which is sort of behind the scenes. And for everyone who doesn't know what a stand-in is, it's sort of like they hire actors who sort of resemble like their lead characters to stand there while they like the scene and get the camera angles they want, and you'll do like the actions and sometimes the dialogue of the actors so that they can see what the shot looks like before they bring out the actors. But I worked on that for like 5-ish months. Super excited about it.
Does that differentiate from like an understudy?
And yeah, an understudy is more like theater. So that's like when your lead character is out, you go on for them. You can't do that in like a movie setting because obviously like they know, oh, it's a different
Yeah, Deca, halfway through the movie, it can't be a completely different actor.
Yeah.
Unless it's
it worked for Doctor Who.
It does. They've actually made that the whole purpose of the franchise.
Yeah.
So the way I see it, you're kind of the test subject for like a scene. It's like, here's how the lighting is, here's what's going to look like on camera, and then they can make whatever adjustments they need to make. It's like when we were talking, I can't remember what we were talking about. I think it was the VTuber episode, Deca. It's like, hey, we're already learning something today about all of this. So
it seems to have some if there's a Venn diagram, it seems to have like some things in common. Like there's some middle ground between like what you're doing and like describing like modeling. Almost.
I don't really know anything about the modeling world.
No.
Well, I mostly mean like, you're in a shot, and you have to make sure you have the shot right, and then you show it before you show it to other people.
Yeah, there's like so many different roles that you don't even think of. So like there's of course the actors and then a stand-in, but then you can also have a body double, which I've never done like body double work, but like we did use a body double in The Fabelmans. There's a scene where like the mom character is playing the piano. So like you would have a body double who can play the piano, and you just like the camera like angles in on only her hands.
Yeah, it's a kind of a far cry from, I guess, the older, like the 50s and like the 40s and 50s. Most of those actors had to know a lot of stuff. You had to know how to dance. You had to have like another talent besides just acting, because they only ever did, one person was doing everything. And that's, nowadays it's like, oh, we just need somebody who looks like them from behind, or we just need somebody who's close enough to do like close-up shots of hands or other, features and stuff like that.
To mention stunt doubles and stuff like that.
Yeah, and stunt doubles, or the whole industry of that is like, hey, you look vaguely like this guy, but we're gonna put you in a little bit of danger because that's what your job is.
So I have to ask before we go any further, and we have to like cut this because you broke an NDA. You're not breaking an NDA by saying any of that stuff, right?
No.
No, we
just making sure.
Yeah, so I don't think we've gotten into any like details or anything. It's just kind of
just making sure.
I was thinking about that last night. I'm laying in bed. I'm like, we're gonna have Marissa on the podcast tomorrow, and I'm like, I have to like talk to her agent or something about this. It's like they're like don't we have to like pay her for like appearance or something?
I actually don't have an agent, so everything I book myself right now.
Oh, you are self-produced.
Yes, currently.
Impressive.
So getting into that, I know kind of like a vague history of you. I know you did cheerleading or you did dancing. That was all before, pursuing the acting career.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, that was like a long time ago. I did you can see in my wall, I did a little bit of ballet and a little bit of cheer, but mainly you always want to have other skills other than acting, and singing is not my thing. I cannot sing, so I went the dancing route.
Yeah, and I think it transitioned well because I think in 13 Reasons Why you did play like one of the cheerleaders in a scene and as well because of the history that you have with it.
Yeah, so that was that's the good thing about having like a cheer or dance background is, I mean, I look fairly young. I'm 27, but I always
play fairly young.
Yeah, I always play high school roles. So in high school, you have cheerleaders, so that's like guaranteed work if you have that experience and can book like a high school cheerleader role. So
yeah,
is that something you put on your CV? Like I used to be especially if you're like going into an acting gig. Is that something you put on your CV specifically? Like, hey, I used to do this, and this. It's like working the old muscles again.
Yeah, so we have of course, for our headshot and resume. And so on our resume, there's a section for, you have to label it special skills, and that would be included in there.
Okay.
Nice. Like a normal job resume, just into a more fascinating field of work.
Very different format.
It's funny mentioning as well the having the gift of eternal youth. I saw like some of the other histories were like college student in like the TV series about like Dahmer or something. Like it was an old series. It was like something. It was like a murder TV series, and it was like college student.
I did on the Reels channel. It's a series called Murder Made Me Famous. I did this in Texas. That's where I studied acting, was in Texas.
Texas boy right here with that.
Nice. It was on Ted Bundy, and then I did another one for Natalie Holloway.
And you
don't get me wrong. I'm glad you got the gig. Just murder documentaries give me the ick.
Our actor who played Ted Bundy looked eerily similar. It was very off-putting.
It's guaranteed work.
Murder documentaries and like Netflix shows based on murderers give me the ick.
Yeah, it's definitely like a weird resurgence of like the true crime stuff, and it is like kind of like a weird feeling because you're like, God, it's really good, and I'm glad it's like showing, everything that happened and like the true story. But God, can people stop thirsting over this?
For real. For real.
And it's a weird headspace to ask an actor to put themselves in.
Yeah, like
I've
done,
so I've done stage work too, and I did play a character who had unfortunate things happen to her, and it took me hours just to get out of that mindset. It's so almost traumatizing.
Yeah, I can imagine that, getting into that headspace, especially like an actor. It's like, hey, we want you to play this character, but it's a murderer, and it's like, here's what he did, and you have to be like, cool, I'm going to portray that. I have to portray this horrific things that sometimes they do kind of, smooth over for the sake of a general audience, but it's like you're still having to get into that mindset of like, man, I'm showing them what this guy did. Like, it's just kind of, I can't imagine what that headspace has to be like, or at least the mental fortitude that you have to know, like, this is just a job. I'm going to go in, I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to drop it when I leave and go back home. Like,
yeah.
So I have a little bit of I'm not going to say expertise when we have a little actress here, but I have some knowledge in this actually, because this ties into one of the things I do a lot is role playing. And it hits a similar vein when you do a very intense scene in role play where it's like you're not literally acting it, but you're still saying, hey, I'm doing this, and you're portraying a character in a scene. And so some of the aspects that come along with it, as you probably know, are like some character bleed, where like some of the things that your character did like kind of seep into you, and you're like suddenly you find yourself, oh hey, I'm kind of able to do that actually, or vice versa, where it's like you're putting yourself into the character.
So one of my favorite things to do is like go to Renaissance fairs, and I feel like that's sort of like very similar.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like everyone, like they wouldn't consider themselves really actors, but I'm like, no, you are, like that is acting.
There's different levels. It's like it's like just because you're not on like a big Hollywood, screen or something, like if you're still in a community, like a small community, you're doing like a community project, like you're still an actor. You can be like, if you wanted to try to take the next step, you're like, hey, I helped on these years, doing this. This is the experience that I have. I mean, same thing with theater. Like a lot of kids in high school, they go to the drama club and it's like, I love this. I'm going to try to apply for, a theater school somewhere for university and go to it. And it's like, just that it's a stepping stone. It's not like you're hard stuck in that position.
Or you do the other way around, like Critical Role, where they were voice actors first and then they went to D&D.
Yeah.
Voice acting is actually way harder to get into than like what I do, normal acting, because voice actors have such a a diverse range. They can be like completely different characters. Meanwhile, I sort of market myself as like one thing or maybe like this other thing, but they could be like anything. And so like oftentimes they reuse those same actors that they know are reliable and they can trust. So it's a much harder industry to break into.
Yeah, we have like the in terms of voice actors from like video games and like live streams for D&D, like stuff that me and Jeremy here watch. There's like the list of like the top 5, and it's like the only ones you ever see in something. Yeah. It's like, hey, he could be recording voices.
Travis Willingham, Liam O'Brien,
Nolan North. It's like you're just like, hey, this guy is voicing this character in this game, but this game's also coming out at the same time, which means he was doing both of these roles at one time, like going to
pretty
and
close
from
to each
them.
other.
And I'm like, can you just hire somebody else? Like, why does this one guy have to do it all?
It's work too.
Yeah, it's still work.
I have a related question. We were talking about like some of the not so great scenes that you've had to film as an actress, just in content, not necessarily in like poor working conditions. So I have a question, because this is something I talk about a lot when I do role playing. What steps do you take after the role is complete to decompress from that situation?
So what sort of helps me is I almost hide away. I mean, I don't know. Everyone has a different process. What works for me is I just like take my own time, like personal time, to sort of decompress, and then like I'll maybe talk to like one or two like friends just to like talk to people. But most of the time it's just like me like watching TikTok.
Yeah, or, like, no, for sure. I've heard of different people do things like they'll like journal it out, or what I do is very similar to you. Is I'll just move away from everybody. I'll jump into like a voice chat with like 2 or 3 of my friends and just kind of talk about it, process it in my own head, being like, that wasn't me, that was the character.
Right.
Yeah. It's a very important distinction to have to make sometimes.
Yeah, I do that exact same thing. Usually it's like my mom, though. I call my mom for everything.
And it's like that. It seems like it's also kind of a rare thing, because I know when you are on shoots, like you're busy all the time. Like it's even hard. Like even I notice like when I'm going through my Instagram, I usually see like 1 or 2 of your pictures like a time, and then it's like you're gone for like weeks on end. And it's just
also really bad at social media, though.
That's fair. But I can also imagine like at the end of it all, at the end of however long you've been shooting, I think you said 5 months earlier this episode, it's just like, you know what? I'm done. I don't exist for a few days. I'm just gonna disappear from the world and just kind of reset myself.
Yeah. I've had particularly like rough sessions of like D&D, where we just like this very big emotional scene, and then you don't hear from me for like a week after that, because I am asleep. I am under my blanket. Do not talk to me.
Or sometimes
I am not okay.
Yeah, or like filming for so long, because it's so much time of your like life sort of being devoted to this film. Sometimes like either I'll hide away or like I'll want to go out constantly and do things and play catch up for everything I missed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how's that like cutting in? Because I know also last time we talked, just catching up and everything. You mentioned a like restaurant venture, so I can imagine like this balance of now like I'm away all the time, shooting these scenes, and I'm also trying to do this.
So I helped my dad and like family. We started a family-owned restaurant in Northern California because I'm in LA, but it's like more north. So that has been a completely like different world. I knew nothing about like business and LLCs. I learned all of it myself, just like YouTubing and Googling things. So that was really interesting. I'm like, dang, I wish I would have taken a business class in college, but I went to a performing arts college, so they didn't even offer that. But
say probably not.
Yeah, I think that was one of our conversations. You're like, I don't know what half of these forms are.
Yeah, but I learned, we did it. It's open. It's going pretty well. People are super excited about it. Vegan options coming soon. I'm vegan.
What's the restaurant?
It's a pizzeria.
I was gonna say, feel free to plug yourself right now if there's any Californians.
Frankie's Pizza Old Sac. So I think on Instagram we're at Frankie's Pizza Old Sac. That's our like username.
We'll put that in the description.
Yeah, I put everything in the description after the video. So I just didn't want to be like, here's the restaurant, and then it's just like, oh, all these people are now coming in. It's like, oh no, we've overwhelmed them.
Yes, because our podcast is
yes,
the
for
the
15 views our episode usually get.
It's in like a little historic downtown center, and there's been like rarely nothing new. So the building that we got hasn't been used in years, but they like really believed in the pitch that was given to them, and so they leased us the building, and it's going pretty well. It's exciting,
awesome.
But like so crazy at the same time.
I can imagine. Having worked in restaurants, like either as like a dishwasher or a busboy, I can imagine like how busy that gets. I can't imagine, but I was also like a part of like a big chain, like a company, so they had like the full structure of employees and everything. Yours is more of a family-owned venture.
Yeah, we have less than 20 employees.
Yeah.
I worked retail for 13 years. I'm only just starting a new job. It's factory work. It's manufacturing. So it's different from working retail, but it's still not in the realm of like I don't think I could ever do food service, because it's just a lot of moving parts. I say that fully working in a factory, that it's a lot of moving parts.
I mean, I think my first job ever. So I was weird. I got like 2 jobs at the same time for my first job. So technically, I don't know which one came first, but one of my first jobs was at Dairy Queen. We had a little bit
very basic first job. Like,
yeah.
Very, very Texas of you.
It's actually in Ohio. I've like lived everywhere. But we had food and it was just so gross. I don't know. I don't like working with food.
I don't eat Dairy Queen food. I eat Dairy Queen ice cream.
Yes, correct.
The ice cream was really good. I can't have it anymore, but before I went vegan, it was really good. Their blizzards are fun. They're actually really fun to make. If I ever like, I probably wouldn't go back. But
were you one of the Dairy Queens that like flipped it over to do the thing?
I think you're legally I think you were legally obligated.
You are not legally obligated. I go to Dairy Queens where they don't do it.
Oh, some of them are like.
They're like franchise, right?
Yeah. So the one I worked at, the owner wasn't part of the chain. He just like owned this one store. So I know some are like different because of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't like talking about like money and everything, but like you have this acting job where it takes, a bunch of time out of your life whenever you have to do shooting and everything. I mean, is that like your main income now, or is it more of like you've just saved up from all these past jobs you've had and you're just kind of Is it? Let me reword that because that sounded like an awful question.
Kind of fucked up.
Sorry, I'm just.
No, you're good.
Because I can imagine like the acting job does take a lot of time out of your life, and I can imagine that when you're gone for 5 months at a time, it is very hard to, hold down a job and everything. And I guess I want to say, has it been like challenging to kind of balance that? Because I was expecting like as an extra for the most part, or maybe even as a stand-in, you're probably not being paid, like a big actor like salary or during the shoot. So
Yeah, so you're not paid like, of course, like what a lead is paid.
Yeah.
I think on the first, I don't really know actually, because I've never like been a lead on like a big series or film. I've done like independent films, but that's like completely different.
Yeah.
So there's non-union work and then there's union work. So I'm SAG-AFTRA, so I'm part of the union. We have like fees, not fees, but like a pay rate that productions have to pay us to like have a livable wage. So I think we do get paid pretty well. Like as a stand-in, you'll get paid $209 per 8 hours of work. And then like after 8 hours, you go into overtime. After 10 hours, you go into double time. And then there's like this golden time you can hit, which I've hit golden time twice. And when you hit golden time, it might be like 16 hours, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. Once you hit that, they have to pay you a whole other day's salary on top of that day's salary. So it's pretty nice.
That's like when it's like crunch time. You're like, we have to get this like finished.
Get this done today.
Yeah. But they try so hard to get us out of there, but we're like, no, it's okay. Take your time.
Yeah, and I guess where that question comes from is you always hear of like the struggling actor, the struggling actress and everything. And it's like, that's probably because, they're not union. They don't have that, pay rate. They're people who are just trying to get that first like big break, that big paycheck from like the first thing. And like when you talk about how long it takes to shoot stuff and all that, I can only imagine like, man, the pay has to be like livable, it can't like, you can't have these people living in LA or something like that, not making enough to, afford the rent out there, to afford the gas out there.
Really expensive out there.
It's very expensive out there. So
it is very expensive, but it's also very doable if you do it right. I see people who are like, oh, I got a studio apartment for $1,400. I'm like, I pay less than $800 for rent personally. And I have like a 4-bedroom house, but I have roommates.
Yeah.
So like to have an affordable place, you need roommates. That's what I recommend. But like if I were to live on my own, like that's a lot of money.
Living alone in this economy? Like
I want to ask, and you don't have to name anybody. You don't have to say any names. Do your roommates also are they also in the acting?
Yeah, so
actor house.
Yes, so we have like acting, modeling, singing, and dancing. We hit like out of the 4 of us, we hit everything.
Cool,
nice.
So you always hear about like the gamer house. So it's like that's the actor house. There it is.
It's like that's thing. It's like I'm glad that you are finding enough work and everything to actually live comfortably, even if you're living with roommates and all that. It's always good to know that people can pursue what they want to pursue and not feel like almost they're being punished for it because it's like something they have to keep crunching for and budgeting for and all this stuff. Because I guess that kind of sucks the life out of like what you love doing. You're like, if I don't go and get this today, I'm gonna have a hard time figuring out what to do this month. And it's like, so I'm happy that you're actually able to pursue this line of work and everything, at least to a very moderate degree.
Yeah, I think the sort of the struggle that comes with acting, it's not so much, some people do like struggle with the money, and I won't lie, sometimes it is like very paycheck to paycheck, just because also it can take them weeks to send our paychecks, like
that sucks.
crazy amount of time. But sort of the struggle on my end, at least personally, is knowing what, because some people, they have their whole lives, they're working a 9 to 5 that they don't particularly enjoy, but that's what they're doing. And it takes a while to find like what you're really passionate about. But like for me, I've known since like I was in 3rd grade that I've always wanted to do acting. But the problem is, so like when I'm doing a stand-in work or like an extra in a show or like an independent film that's not really being shown like on the big screen, not being able to do that, to do what I want to do, what I know I want to do, is really like almost like a hollow feeling. I don't know how to explain it. So that's sort of like the struggle on my end.
Let's
I think.
What did you say, Deca?
So let's say, I think on my end, like I said, I'm working a manufacturing job. I'm just using the expertise that I had working in a backroom situation for 13 years at Walmart. And I think all of that for me is busy work. And then when I get home, all I want to do is DM my friends, play D&D with my friends, or take pictures of people. I'm a photographer. So I do photography. I tell stories with my friends. And really those are the two big things that if I could monetize those well enough, I'd be doing that.
I mean, I love, the video creation, which is why we have this podcast, because I went to you and a few other friends and I was like, "Do you guys want to start a podcast?" It's like whose line is it anyway? It's like words that will start a fight. Hey, do you guys want to start a fight? Just like straight up just asking the question,
Yeah.
I want to pivot from, the logistics. We've probably spent about a half hour talking about the logistics of being an actress. What did you see that made you decide I want to be in movies? I want to be on TV. Like, was it a show? Was it a movie? Was it just like a scene you saw? Can you remember? That was too long ago.
Actually, I do remember quite well, but it all started in like stage work. I was in 3rd grade, and my 3rd grade, like my main teacher in 3rd grade did theater. And so instead of, I think it was for like an English assignment. I don't remember what they call it in like 3rd grade. I'm sure it wasn't like English. I don't know what it was called.
Language arts.
Language arts. There you go. We had to read. We had to read Charlotte's Web, but instead of reading Charlotte's Web, she made us like audition for characters and put on a performance. I auditioned for Fern, the like main girl, and I got cast as Wilbur the pig. And I remember being so upset that I got cast as Wilbur because I wanted to be the lead character, and I didn't realize Wilbur was the lead character. So that's sort of how like my love for acting started. And then I pursued it relentlessly all throughout high school. I did 8 shows a year in high school. I don't know how I did that, but I did it. And like my high school was big on theater. My director was like the state director for like the Thespian Society.
Nice.
Which is like this society of actors. So we went to like international festivals, national festivals, and everything, and like performed. And so that carried over to college. But doing stage for so long, I kind of lost my love for it. It was just stage is so different than film, because on film, cut, you can do multiple takes. On stage, you got one shot, you got to do it right.
Yeah.
I fell out of stage a little bit. And also it's just like, there's some behind the scenes stuff that didn't really mesh with my personality. I'm very like more laid back and sort of quiet sometimes. And a lot of stage actors are very like loud.
Fantastic, yes.
It's the politics.
Which isn't bad at all. Like, I wish I could be like that, but I'm always like, I don't know.
It's the stereotype about the theater kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that used to be me, but.
Yeah. So I've done stage work before, so yes, I understand.
Yeah, when you say 8 shows a year, that's 8 stage shows at your school per year, or was that other work?
So our drama club had 3 shows, but then our theater class, it was called the Advanced Acting Ensemble. We did 3 shows in that, so 6 shows total for the school, but not the school, our theater, because our school actually didn't support the theater. We were completely self-funded. So we did everything ourselves. We weren't affiliated with the school, even though it's part of the school. Really weird, I know. Stay with me.
Sounds like school funding.
Yeah. And then I did a ballet show with my ballet company. And then I did our area show for Ohio, our central area show. So 8 total.
Busy.
Yes. That's why my grades were not the best, but that's okay. I went into acting. Who needs good grades when they act?
But
not me.
I don't need good grades. I'm pretty.
But did you graduate though?
I did.
Then it all worked out.
I was in the marching band. My high school was very big on marching band. And very similarly, like I had teachers who would straight up pass me because I was in the marching band. They're like, no, you're fine. You just sit there and watch work. Because I would like, be practicing like moves that I'm doing on the when I perform. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, have a pretend horn like this, and they'll see me doing that, and they're like, oh yeah, you keep doing what you're doing. You're fine. I passed Spanish that way, baby.
Yeah.
I felt Spanish. I don't know why I never picked it up. I'm so good at memorizing a script, but like all the languages I've tried to learn, my brain will not, like, I can't get it in there.
Yeah, I went through 3 years of Japanese in high school, and it's like completely like oozed out in ear over the last like 10 years. So
But like, I'm sure if I ever had a script where I had to learn another language, I bet I would learn it. I just can't learn unless it's like in a script.
yeah.
I don't know.
That's some people like I guess that just comes down to like a learning style. Like when people at work ask me like a technical question, I can't give it to them off the top of my head. But like any documentation, anything, I can just be like, oh, here's what we have to do. It's like I can't recall. I have to have something in front of me.
Right.
And when it came to learning, it was the same way. It was like, if you just give me like the book, I'll sit there, I'll read it, I'll make weird like connections between words and concepts. So when a test comes around, it's like, oh, okay, here's the acronym I made for that. But somebody's like, hey, what's this? And I'd be sitting there like, I have no idea. Despite the fact I just studied it, you know?
Right.
So it definitely comes down to, I guess, a certain type of person is I'm not gonna say more fit to be an actor or an actress, but definitely has a little more of like the mental edge to do it, because like, hey, this is how I learn looking at this, like I can just memorize all of this and everything. And you're right about the stage play. It's like you get one shot, you know, on those scenes. You can't just be like, oh, do over.
Line.
And it's like, as somebody who hates like speaking in front of a classroom in high school, that terrifies me to go on stage and be like,
you're a DM now.
Yeah, and I'm still bad at it. But it's just like you go up on stage and you're like, oh, I should have to remember this whole like scene in front of these people.
Okay, so I never liked public speaking either. I would like literally like shake when I had to do public speaking. Hated it. But getting on stage, even though like you get so nervous before, but once you're on stage, it like
I have to hold that.
I don't know. You just do it.
It's that feeling of like, I
understand exactly what you mean.
It's that feeling. It's that feeling of like, you know, the lights are shining down. It kind of black out everybody in the audience. You can't really see like if people are staring, but you also have that feeling of, you know, it's like, you know, my time. All eyes are on me. Like this is. I'm gonna nail it.
Don't fuck it up.
I know like when we're talking about what you've done the like Murder Made Me Famous. You did 13 Reasons Why. You're doing Fableman, which I didn't even ask, you know, what's that movie about? I haven't heard actually anything about that movie or seen any trailers for it.
Oh my God.
So I guess we'll answer this question and then I'll go on to my original question. Just in case. So the Fableman.
The Fablemans. So it's sort of about Steven Spielberg's life.
Ooh.
But his characters are not named like necessarily after him or his family, but they are him and his family. But he made it a very like, it's a character at the same time, but it is like completely based on his real life and how he sort of fell into directing. Definitely like watch a trailer. It's going to be such an amazing film. I'm so excited to see it. It's so funny because when I first started working on the film, I didn't really know what he looked like. I don't know. I never Googled Steven Spielberg. You hear the name, but you don't always put a face to the name.
Like beard and glasses, right?
Yeah. I had no idea that he was Steven Spielberg when I first saw him, just because he's so casual. He is the most humble, like, man I've ever, like, met as a director. You just would not expect it. He made it a priority to know everyone's name on set, and that's never happened on any set I worked on, and it should happen more.
Yeah.
But he was just like the nicest person ever, and I love him.
And I want to chime in real quick, because the plot of Fableman, it actually, like, I was about to say that it's like he's making the story about him and his family, but he's not owning that it's him and his family. He's not making it about him. He's making it almost like a pastiche of his life, but it's like you're not playing me, you're playing this guy. It's just based on it, but it's like this movie's not going to be like about me. It's going to be about a guy who I'm just putting this history on. I feel like that probably comes with a sense of, you know, the being humble and everything. It's like I can make a big movie about me, but I'm not going to do that technically.
Right.
I was gonna say I'm gonna go the other way with that. I think that is where he puts his ego in that work, so that he can be humble everywhere else.
Well, this is why conversations are good, because we have two completely diametrically opposed viewpoints on that.
Yeah, I feel like that is and like you were on the set, so you would know better than us.
Yeah.
But to me, that sounds like this is my story. I'm putting it on these fictional characters, but this is my story. And he does that there, and then everywhere else is like, "Hi, I'm Steven Spielberg."
So I feel like, I mean, I can't speak for the man.
Yeah.
Sure.
But like being on the set and just how he talked to the actors portraying like his family or the actor portraying him, he never was like, you have to do it this way. This is, you know, he never made it feel like this is my story. On the set, he made it feel like this is our story. And we like got to be part of almost his life in that sort of way. I'm not really sure what they're labeling the film. I know like there's some like autobiography, whatever that word.
Biographical.
Yes, there's some films like that, but I don't think this is necessarily one, but I'm not completely sure what it's like categorized as.
I'm just gonna do a quick little precursory look here.
Google.
There you go.
On Wikipedia, it is described as a coming-of-age drama. So,
well, there you go.
It's very, yes, actually.
Oh, Judd Hirst is on this.
Oh yeah, there's some big names.
Yeah, I'm looking. Paul Dino, Seth Rogen. Actually, might be a pretty good movie. So
all of everyone. I mean, everyone literally on that set was so nice. It was such a dream compared to some other sets I've been on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that luckily that didn't answer my next question. You've been on all these things, you know, 13 Reasons Why, which would be more of like a teen drama / crime story, kind of in the same vein as like the first few seasons of Riverdale were. And then you have, you know, Murder Made Me Famous and everything. Is there a genre that you want a role in at some point? Like, is there something that you would...
that look!
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I know what it is. I just want to hear from her.
I love horror films, scary movies, everything. Like, that is what I want to do. It sounds so like deranged almost, but I want to be the murderer. I want to be murdered, and I want to survive. So I want to like hit every mark.
Dead by Daylight, the Dead by Daylight 3 trifecta.
You want to, yeah, you want to be the killer, you want to be the final girl, and you want to be one of the victims. It's all the characters.
I want to do it all. That's why I love American Horror Story, because like they always reuse their actors too, but they get to be like all these different people, and like that show has so many seasons. Something that I've struggled with was I've always thought, oh, if I ever got booked on a TV series, how would I feel being the same character for like 5+ seasons? Because part of the reason I love acting is being different characters. So it would be really hard to commit to one character for like multiple years. I want to be a different character every time. Yeah.
So this is me and Kristen, you know, you're familiar with Kristen. We talk, we're kind of like in the same friend circle. We've been talking about it. This year has been just like a golden year for horror in terms of like all these indie horror films that have come out. And it's like, there's this resurgence. So it's like, and a lot of it has been very smart, you know, horror too. It hasn't been kind of like the schlocky, you know, exploitative horror that the 80s and 90s had. It's actually been way more, you know, intelligent, way more, you know, everything has like a meaning. It's not just like gratuitous anymore. Right. And it's definitely like horror is definitely being seen now as like a major genre again, after like years of just being treated as kind of like a, you know, specialty genre for people. And especially probably because of American Horror Story and like all these other like anthology things that are coming out relating to it.
So one of like the things that I don't like in scary movies are jump scares. Not because like, oh, that's scary. I just feel like it's cheap. Yeah, it's a cheap way of like being scared. I love, Ari Aster. He did Midsummer and Hereditary.
I've talked to them about it on podcast. Hereditary still fucks me up. Like that movie has like left a scar in my life.
Shout out to the podcast last year.
Anything A24 does, like Pearl, I can't wait to see. I haven't seen Pearl, but I've seen X.
Yeah, me and Kristen watched X a few weeks ago, and wild movie. I loved it. We sat down and watched Barbarian a few days ago, and
I haven't seen that.
It's a wild one. And I'm like, A24 is just knocking it out of the park. So
I want to do one of their films so bad.
Yeah, and it's like, and I would love to see that. I would love to see you in like an anthology series where it's like, hey, this episode, it's like, hey, that's my friend. Oh, she's being murdered. And then it's like another episode or a movie or something. It's like, who's the killer? And it's like, oh my god, it's my friend. like I would love to like have that moment like pop up in life where I can just fully sit there doing the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. like
that's on that movie poster.
Yeah, just to see, just like seeing you on a movie poster, I would just be like, I know them. like
that's the Will Smith.
Yeah,
realistically, I mean, I feel like, hey, that's me, like exciting, but realistically, I would be like trying to hide from the poster probably and be like, don't look at it.
And I mean, that's
it's the thing where you hide from the poster and the poster's like right next to you and it just sees you and them.
I mean, that's another thing. It's like when you get to that point where it's like your face is on billboards, your face is on movie posters, you're seeing yourself on commercials. Like, I can only imagine like the mindset you have to have. It's like, okay, this is my life now. you know, like, and the thing is, I've talked to Deca about this before. I want to be like, in terms of the content creation I do, whether it be the gaming videos or this podcast or something, I want to have viewers, but I don't want to be famous. You know, like I don't want to have my life under that microscope. You know, like it's just,
it comes with a lot of responsibility as well.
Yeah, and it comes with a thing. It's like a lot of people who have had that responsibility have shown their true colors in a lot of spaces, whether it be, you know, big name actors or directors and producers or people online. It's like, hey, they've had all this following and like all these fans, and it's like, oh, behind the scenes they're a very terrible person, you know. And it's like,
that's funny. Actually, this was the last season of 13 Reasons Why. We had an actor, like a new actor who plays like this main character, but he started treating like the background actors very poorly, and they fired him, and we refilmed every single scene he was in.
Hell yeah. Don't even give them
out of there.
Don't even give them the time.
I was like, okay.
And that has to be a good feeling too, when it's like, hey, this is the main cast. But it has to also be a good feeling where it's like, they're not getting off scot-free when they're assholes. You know, it's like, you all come in here, we need background characters. We can't have a show about school when there's nobody else in the hallway. Like, we have to have extras and stuff like that, but that doesn't give them an excuse to be treated less as a member of the cast.
Yeah, it just comes down to like being respectful. You always want to be respectful on set. Everyone there, like, I mean, there's also like instances where I've never done it just because I don't know, like this is what I want to do. I know this is my job, but I have seen like extras go up to the main cast and be like, can I have a picture? I'd never recommend doing that. Sometimes like the actors are super nice about it, but it's just kind of like unprofessional.
Yeah, I mean, you're all here to do a job and everything, and it's like, you can't be distracting the people who are going to be, you know, on camera with all the focus on them, being like, you can't say anything to upset them before a scene. It's like, oh great, I've thrown off that guy's, you know, mood, and now it's transitioning and he's probably going to talk to somebody about me. You know, it's
like every actor's process is different. I know there are some who like stay in character 24/7 while on set. I've never done it that way personally, but like that's what works for them, and they create amazing content because of it. So like you never know like what someone's process is, and you could be disturbing it.
I can imagine with the Fableman, because I saw the cast list, Paul Dino. I'm not sure if you had any personal interaction with him, but seeing what
Yeah.
he did in the latest Batman, is he that kind of actor? Is he like the method actor where he just always seems like he's in his
No,
character?
I don't
Because
think so, at least. So
then he's
in
just
the
that good of an actor. Like he's just
Yeah.
that good.
a lot of like, since it's a family dynamic in the Fablemans, we were all like all the stand-ins and actors, like we go in and out. Like once we leave, the actors come in. So we did do a lot of scenes where we were in the same room at like times, and he was just always super like nice and polite, respectful. He was never, I don't think he was ever like in character the whole time. I mean, maybe he was, I don't know. But he was just nice.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people who are method actors, are the ones that turn out to be like the biggest jerks on set, or the people who have like the worst habits towards people. I mean, recently, the Jared Leto stuff coming out where it's like, hey, I'm gonna be the Joker when we're not filming, and it's just like the whole cast is like, I'm getting tired of this man. Like this man has got to go. And
It's unfortunate, but also at the same time, like, I get it on one hand, but then on the other hand, it's like, come on. But like that's their process at the same time, and everyone is different, and it is a lot to take on. Like a role, it's a lot to handle, and if that's how someone can get into that role and produce their content, like more power to them.
yeah, and I mean that's the thing. Like it works because if it didn't work, they wouldn't keep getting work. Like if it's
Yeah.
like, hey, the way that I'm doing this, where I'm going to be this character 24/7 while we're on set, it wouldn't translate to the film, and then it wouldn't carry over, to be like, hey, he did a good job. We're going to hire him. If it's like, that came out like awful, so we need to figure out like what he's doing to get into
Right.
character.
So I'm sure it's hard to like snap in and then snap out because film, it's very cut, okay, rolling. So like you have to get in and out fairly quickly. So it's probably for certain actors easier if they just stay in that mindset, or else they'll be taking hours just to get back in that mindset, and you don't have hours on set.
Yeah. The Jim Carrey documentary that came out a few years ago, Man on the Moon, it like covered his time as a Andy Kaufman. And it was when they were filming, he was playing that character, and he was in character for the whole time. And it's like it's going through of how he's like he's forgetting that he's not this character. Like it actually affected him to like that point where he's just like at the end of the day was like he's still acting like Andy Kaufman despite like being in his trailer, like leaving for the day.
Yeah.
So you have to probably have that mindset and that mentality to be like, all right, the job's done. Back to me. We'll get back into this. But it's like some people, it's like they get so into it that, it starts to affect them. And I mean, most tragically, Heath Ledger had the same thing where he's like, I locked myself in a hotel room. I tried to get into this Joker mindset, and, it led to, a tragedy.
Yeah, that's so sad. But it is a lot. It's very mentally exhausting.
I can imagine doing that for, 5 months, like you said with yours. It's like I can imagine just the mental drain. And, you have the days where you're like, all right, I don't want to do this right now, but, this is my job. I'm here. I'm hired to do this. And you just have to, like, push yourself to get through it,
Mm.
But, Deca, do you have anything you would like to continue on with?
I think I had something while we were while you had that thought, and then it went.
It's usually what happens.
Yeah, yeah. But no, it's been a very interesting and I've known in my heart that, like I said, the role playing has like the Venn diagram with acting, because it's effectively acting. But I've never known just how close it is actually. Now that I've seen a actual actress, I have that perception now, and it's confirmed my suspicions.
Yeah, what we do, playing Dungeons and Dragons and everything, we do it around a table, or we do it, through a Discord call like we're doing right now. And then, I mean, that's it on like probably a more microcosm scale, but Marissa here goes out like on camera, with a crew, you know, it's sets and everything, and it's like it is just that to a grander scale, except I suppose ours are less consequential than actually making like a Hollywood movie.
To an
Yeah.
extent, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I one of the things that I like to stress is like decompressing with the squad. And like what I'll do with that is I'll take like the 30 to 45 minutes after session, be like, hey, did everyone have fun? We have a good time. You know, how did this feel? How did that feel? And then because table health is my passion when it comes to like Dungeons and Dragons or any tabletop game that I play. Especially some of the ones that get into more mature themes. I want to make sure that everyone's having a good time, but everyone's also like being responsible about how they're feeling. And if something came up that gave them the ick, to let me know so I could be like, all right, we're gonna scratch that and make sure we're not pushing anybody's boundaries. Oh, so that leads into what I was gonna say. Are there moments in you like again, you don't have to give specifics, but are there moments in like your acting where it's like it's not that you won't do a thing, but it's like, hey, this is giving me the ick here.
Yeah, moments like that, but for the most part, because I am part of a union, I do have like better protection than non-union.
Yes.
I've heard horror stories from friends of mine who aren't part of the union. I'm very fortunate that I've never really ran into a situation that's made me terribly uncomfortable, but there have been like times on set where they'll like go up to random people and they'll be like, hey, are you okay like doing partial nudity for a pay bump? And I'm like, no, I have on my profile specifically that I will not do that. Like, why ask me that? Like, go look at my profile.
Yeah.
So but they don't mean any harm by it. They're just like on their end, like they have, I'm sure like producers or directors, I don't really know because I've never done the crew work side of it, but they always have people in their ear, like going back and forth. So they're on like okay, I got to find this, I got to do this, who wants to do this type vibe. So they don't mean harm by it, but at the same time, like on my end, it's like, well, I wasn't booked as that.
Yeah, it's like I mean, they're producers. They're probably working on multiple movies at one time. So it's like if they come up with somebody, it's like, hey, I got, you know, people here that I can ask around for, you know, our next movie, and to put it into like a horror, to put it into like a horror thing. Was it like Slumber Party Massacre? That movie infamously starts off with like the girls' locker room like shower scene, and I mean, those girls had to agree to, you know, do that. So it's like they're probably looking for people to be like, who's cool with this, you know. It's probably not for personal gain. It's more for I'm trying to find people to fill a scene. So
yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just like sometimes it's not really like worth that with the pay rate they're offering. It's like, oh, here's a $300 bump to get like nude. I'm like, no.
No.
So that there are levels to that, right? Because I'm sure there are, you know, very shoestring budget, you know, films where the director is kind of trying to kind of skeezy.
There's definitely like the skeezy like film, and then
I'm sure there are. I mean, we've seen from history that certain directors turned out they did this, they did that. Like, I've never ran into that personally, but there have been instances that, of course, that's happened on set.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned the part where you like enforce your boundary of like, no, that I am not going to do this. Because that is something again that I like to put forward of like, I like make sure your boundaries are very enforced. This is just general life advice for those of you who are listening. Keep your boundaries enforced. If someone pushes at them, push back. And that's why I'm glad you mentioned like unions. Unions are good.
Yes.
I'm part of one, or I don't pay my dues, but like I have backup at my job.
I'm the only one here out of the three of us who isn't part of a union because I live in fucking Texas.
Yeah.
But that's a right to work state.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the you have help for when your boundaries are in like starting to get encroached upon. You can be like, no. And there are things in place for you. There are protections in place for you. It's something like the session zero with players in tabletop, where it's like, okay, this is what I'm planning. Does anything in here sound like it's something you do not want to be a part of?
Yeah,
And we can go from there. We can have that conversation.
I'm wondering, is that the same process? Like for putting D&D terms, like session zero, it's like, hey, this campaign is going to have this type of content in it. Does any of this concern anybody? Is there something like a screening process for that when you're like getting roles? It's like, hey, we got this movie that, we can put you in. Here's what it includes. Does any of this make you uncomfortable for being like a background, character?
So it definitely depends. Like you will never blindly go in and not know what the scene is about.
Yeah.
When you not audition, but submit to a casting call, it will be like, okay, this includes nudity. This is partial nudity. So they just label what it is beforehand, and then you will book. Or like you won't be involved in the nudity, but there will be like, this scene includes nudity. But even though if you're not doing it.
Okay, so it's like, hey, if you don't want to, be around here for the scene, you can leave set or something like that. And then, is it something like that?
You can't leave set. You just wouldn't apply for that position. But like I worked on a film called Incoming. It's a new high school type movie. I don't know. It stars. Actually, the only person I've heard of on this movie is Lauren Gray. She's like
the TikTok. She's like a singer.
Yes, so she had this new movie coming out called Incoming, and I worked on that. And we were just like party goers. We were just supposed to be like high school partiers, and they didn't like say, "Oh, this has nudity." We were just booked. But like it wasn't full. Well, actually, no. There were some people. Yeah, but
there was varying layers.
So what do you do in that situation then, where it's like, well, this wasn't mentioned. Now where do we go from here?
If so, sets are really good about if you feel uncomfortable, you can like step out of the scene. Most times people don't really care if they're not the ones like doing it, but if someone's really uncomfortable, then of course you can just talk to like a PA or a production assistant.
Okay. So there's still there is still like a safety mechanism, built into the chain of command there too.
And no one will get upset for you if you feel uncomfortable. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, you can step out of the scene." I mean, you can't like leave altogether, but
but you can like go to like a trailer.
Yeah. To holding. So we have like holdings. You only get a trailer if you're like a big part. Sure.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. So that parallels with a safety tool in place for tabletop where it's called it's just the get up, where if there's a scene that's making you uncomfortable, if you're not a part of it and everyone else is fine, but you're getting the ick or whatever, you can, like in my tables, especially since we're online, like get up, go use the restroom, do what you gotta do.
So you're sort of like a director.
Yeah, and that's
dungeon mastering is very much directing.
There's this weird Venn diagram of mine and Jeremy's like D&D
it's
stuff.
It's slowly becoming a circle at this point.
It is slowly becoming a circle, but it's like it is acting. It's just on a smaller scale, but a lot of the same, safety mechanisms are there where it's like, hey, you're uncomfortable. We can get you out of here for a few minutes, or I can just like fade to black with this situation, and we can just move on from it. I mean, you can't really do that in a movie, but at least you have someone to go to. It's like, hey, I'm not comfortable here. Can I, step away while this is going on, and then, come back when it's time to move on from the scene.
Yeah.
So at least it's because I think most people hear horror stories of like acting in Hollywood where it's like, this is happening, especially back in the day, 60s, 70s. It's like you didn't have all these kind of, protections in place. And that's why we got, these shitty directors like Polanski and all this other stuff. And it's like all these actresses, the biggest one being like Stanley Kubrick and God, I forget her name, but during The Shining, where it was like abusive towards her, and it's just like they didn't have all that, support in place. So I'm glad that we're
It's-
actually seeing,
It's a lot better now.
it is a lot better.
I won't say like nothing doesn't happen.
Mhm.
I'm sure
You're still going to get assholes. Like, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what you do, there's always going to be the person who's like, man, screw the rules. I'm the one in charge here. So
it's much harder to. So you're always going to hear about the horror stories, no matter what, because they're the ones that get the most traction when they're producing a story for something. It's much harder. Like you were mentioning, Steven Spielberg being like a total sweetheart.
yeah, that's the good story.
I didn't know that.
Like, I want to
that's a
hear
good
more.
story.
I want to hear more of those stories from set. Like, you hear everything about like Keanu, where it's like he doesn't take his full salary. He gave it to like the Matrix, like stunt crew and costume thing, and like he gives people, him and The Rock, they like give people like cars and for people who need help and everything. So it's like we do need more of, like, when you start hearing these good stories, and it's like you understand like people can be good. It's just you have to hear more about it. Most of the time it's like, oh, the Alex Baldwin thing, he accidentally killed somebody because the prop gun wasn't loaded correctly, and it's like that's the story that like held on for weeks and everything. So it's just bad at times.
also like a big part of media too, and media sort of managing what they want us to see and hear.
Yeah, it's a lot of this is going to catch attention, so we'll cover this more than Steven Spielberg made his crew feel like a family, like, which is the better story,
Yeah.
And it's disappointing, but that's kind of the reality that
That's
we have to live
showbiz,
with.
baby.
That's showbiz.
Right? They're their own source of entertainment in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
News people too, like people on the news or like sportscasters, they're actually all part of SAG-AFTRA.
Oh wow!
I didn't know that.
Today I learned. Yeah.
Because they're on TV. Anyone on TV is part of SAG-AFTRA usually.
Nice.
Gotcha.
That's
Well, that's
interesting.
it.
I didn't
That's
know
it for
that.
me.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And that's a cool little tidbit to learn.
That's a cool little tidbit to end the show with.
Yeah, I mean, we've taken up about an hour of your time now. This is
Yeah.
what we said we would probably do. I know, like I say, you just kind of finished filming, so we'll let you get back to decompressing and enjoying your time. But Marissa, I wanted to thank you for coming on to the show today.
Yeah.
Thank
This
you,
is very
guys.
interesting.
I like getting people from different like walks of life and everything. Like I said, we
Mhm.
had somebody who did game development. Now we have an actress. We had, all these other.
We've had VTubers, a VTuber who was a freaking teacher.
Yeah, we had somebody who was a teacher. It's like we love getting people from different walks of life. So I knew instantly.
One girl, I think she did gaming. The last girl you just had on.
The last
We
one
had Tasha on. Who,
That might.
No.
Well, Tasha is in my D&D game.
Okay.
Yeah,
I watched hers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We like interviewed for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, it was her first time playing D&D, so we wanted to do an episode of like what she thought about it and what it's like having, somebody
Baby's
like
first
Jeremy.
D&D game.
Yeah, baby's first D&D. So like we like getting different people onto stuff and like talking about different things. But
I love hearing different points of view. I don't think I have a confirmation bias in the slightest, but I do love to like challenge the things I might have. Like I said, I would have thought Steven Spielberg's like a piece of shit just because the richer people in my mind are usually the kinds that are like not great.
Yeah.
But you've kind of turned that a little bit, so good job.
He doesn't even like. You would not think this man probably is like super rich and famous because he dresses so normal
Shows
too.
up in jeans and a shirt.
Yes. I had no idea it was him. Which is kind of embarrassing because I remember talking to someone. They're like, "Yeah, that's Steven Spielberg." I was like, "What?"
You're like, what? I would imagine I'd expect somebody with like a suit or somebody who like. There's like, when I say look of a director, like there's an image that everybody conjures up in their mind.
There's a cap. There's a bomber jacket.
Yeah,
there's like a megaphone.
That's kind of like the image that people conjure into their mind. But it's like with Steven Spielberg, you're like, hey, look, he's just a normal guy who's like, I'm here to do my job. Like that's that's it. But yeah. So thank you for coming on today. It has been a blast.
Very enlightening.
I hope whoever watches this isn't intimidated by the concept of acting. Like I said, it's such something you have to pretty much put your mind to, you know, know different things, singing, dancing, you know, have something that can help you stand out from probably the thousands and thousands of other people trying to get the role that you're going for as well. And just, you know, understand, you know, it's a slow process, you know, like I said, you want it to be in a horror movie, but it's like, the realistic thing is like, a lot of people are going to start as extras, and then it's going to take, you know, that one moment, maybe talking to the right person to be like, hey, give me a chance as the thing. And for some people, that moment might never come. So like people
always network.
Be networking. And it's just,
that's just good advice.
I think it's just the thing is like, you can't rush it. You know, this is not something you're going to do one role for and then instantly try to, you know, be the star of the next thing.
There's no instant fame in my experience and everyone I've met.
And usually instant fame never works out good for anybody either. It's way too much, like too quick.
Too much at once, yeah.
But yeah. So for the third time, thank you. Thank you.
Don't feel bad. We do this all the time.
We do this all the time. We have never successfully ended a show correctly.
It's the Mexican goodbye in me. So you're welcome.
But yeah, thank you for being here, taking time out of your schedule to join us. It has been a blast talking to you, and I'll personally talk to you at some point again, whenever you have some free time. But
you're
I
also
hope that
entered into the Rolodex of guests.
Yeah, you're also entered into the Rolodex, so we may reach out in the future too, especially after another project of yours or something, to talk to you again, see how things are going, you know, a year down the line or so. But
well, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, did you have fun?
Yes, I loved it.
Awesome.
This is so.
A lot of people we get on, they have never done like a podcast or a podcast or anything. So it's like, Jeff fun. It's like, yeah, that was pretty fun. It's like, it's just a conversation for like an hour. So
talking.
It's like a late night Denny's, just talking over breakfast.
Yeah.
But we're going to let you go now. So
all right.
Some housekeeping stuff. Deca, do you have anything that you want to say before we go?
We were originally going to have Call of the Netherdeep episode 13 dropped on Monday, so tune into that. You can watch the finale of the grand tournament between Arte the Centaur and whoever she ends up fighting in the finals. And other than that, we were going to record on Saturday, but we couldn't because, you know, scheduling conflicts, the true big bad of D&D. But we are looking to be on the 12th, which means towards Thanksgiving we can have an episode out. Session 14 can be out. So missing a week. That.
So missing a week.
Yeah.
Just from the episodes.
It's gonna be that's just the nature of the beast for the holidays for all of us here.
Yeah, holiday season as scheduling starts to get really wonky. So
yeah.
As for other stuff, the Dummies and D20s channel, that's still on kind of hiatus for another few weeks until we can get everybody together again. We have like 2 different D&D shows going on, and it's the same issue between both of them because it's the same group of people between both of them. So can't really do much there. But yeah, and also YouTube has added handles now, so you can find us at WC Network rather than trying to type in that long URL because it hasn't let me make a custom one yet.
To be fair, you are here right now, so
you're here right now, so subscribe.
You got there.
You should have been subscribed. It's the same thing I say. Why are you watching our videos and you're not subscribed to us? That's weird. But yeah, and again, if there's anything that you want to plug, Marissa, we'll end the show with you.
No, I think I just had like early on my little plug, so I'm good.
All right.
We'll put a link to that Instagram for the restaurant. I'll get that from you in our chat, just so I know the correct address. Okay. But thank you everybody for watching this week. We'll see you next week when we figure out what guests to bring onto the show. We need to start asking around. We've run out of the list again. And yeah, so we'll see you all next week. And take care, everybody.
Bye.